She chose him, not because he tried, not because he chased, but because he didn't fold. I never cared about love. Not the soft kind. Not the patient kind. Certainly not the equal kind. What moved me was power. What kept me alive was the thrill of making powerful men forget who they were once they looked at me. They didn't fall in love. They fell out of themselves and into me. And I liked it that way. No, I needed it that way. Then he arrived. Not a prince. Not a general. Not anyone the room was watching. But something in him made me pause. Not because he looked at me, but because he didn't. That was the first time. Desire didn't come from hunger. It came from confusion. And that was more dangerous than any kiss I'd ever given. Chapter 1. I offered him everything men usually want, and he refused. So quietly it echoed. The first time I saw him, he didn't lower his eyes. Didn't stammer. Didn't try to please. He just stood there, like silence wearing the shape of a man. So I did what I always do. I walked past him a little slower. Let my shoulder brush just close enough. Let my voice drop just soft enough. I gave him the look that had brought kings to their knees. He looked back. Not down, not away, but not toward me either. He saw me and stayed. Still, the next day I sent for him. Nothing dramatic, just a summons, a room with wine. Music low. Me, barefoot, in silk, reading by firelight. He came in, took one glance and said, "This isn't necessary," then turned to leave. I almost laughed. No one had ever said that to me. No one had ever left without wanting something first. He didn't even want to talk, and that made me want him more than any man I'd ever conquered. But this wouldn't be seduction. Not yet. This was a game of containment, and I'd never lost. Chapter 2. I offered him power, not because he asked, but because I wanted to see if he'd take it. He didn't. The second time I summoned him, I wasn't wearing silk. I was wearing authority. A room full of strategy, maps, names, secrets that shaped nations. I told him, "This role is yours, if you want it." He looked at the table, at the offer, at the empty chair across from mine. Then said, "Power you don't earn is just another form of distraction." And stepped back. He didn't insult me. Didn't question my intentions. Didn't act like he saw. Through it. He just didn't move. And that was more offensive than any rejection I'd known. Not because it was rude, because it was clean. Clear, unemotional, unshakable. So I gave him more. Visibility, access, private dinners. I spoke his name. Louder in public. Watched as others looked at him differently. Waited for his posture to shift, for the weight of being chosen to crack his composure. It never did. The Stoics teach, what is not necessary is noise, and noise will always try to sell itself as destiny. And this man, this still, unreadable man, would not buy what he didn't seek. I asked him once, "Don't you want to matter in this world?" He looked me in the eye and said, Not at the cost of who I am when no one is watching. And I swear, felt something shift in me. Something that wasn't lust, wasn't conquest, wasn't anger. It was respect. And for a woman like me, used to being obeyed, respect is the most dangerous thing can feel. Because it means I'm no longer in control. Chapter 3. I pushed. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I needed to know if he could break. He didn't. I changed the tone. No more softness. No more offers. I brought the weight of my throne into the room with me. Let silence fall heavy. Let words turn sharp. I reminded him, kindly, at first, that I wasn't just a woman. I was a power. A lineage. A storm dressed in silk. And anyone who stood near me without bowing surely didn't stand for long. He listened. Not tense. Not amused. Just still. When I finished, he said nothing, and that made me furious. I leaned in, whispered, "Refusal can come with consequences." He looked at Malik. I had just said the most ordinary sentence in the world. Then calmly, "So can obedience." I felt my breath catch, because in that moment, he wasn't standing against me. He was standing outside everything I thought could touch a man. Sex, status, fear. None of it touched him. The Stoics wrote, "You cannot own what is free within. You can only offer the illusion of exchange." And he wasn't exchanging anything. Not his voice. Not his spine. Not even his silence. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because for the first time in my entire reign, I had encountered something stronger than submission. And it wasn't rebellion. It was clarity. I wanted him gone. I wanted him near. I wanted to test him again. But what I felt most of all, and hated admitting, was this. I was beginning to admire the one man who would not kneel to the parts of me I used to control everyone else. Chapter 4. I tried to hurt him. Not because I hated him, but because I needed him to react. He didn't. And that broke me more than I expected. I dismissed him in front of others, publicly, precisely. A gathering of council, small enough to be intimate, formal, enough to be strategic. He spoke, just once, calm, intelligent, measured. And I interrupted, corrected. Laughed almost. Leave matters of war to those who've seen it. A low blow. Not true, not necessary, but surgical. I saw the faces. Smirks from men who envied him. Shock from women who admired him. And him? He didn't blink. He simply nodded once, and stayed quiet for the rest of the evening. The Stoics say, when someone wrongs you, let your dignity be the loudest reply. And that's exactly what he did. No shift in posture, no coldness, no retreat. Just presence, unmoved but not untouched. And somehow that hurt more than a slammed door. Later, I waited for him in the corridor. No guards, no throne. Just me, hands at my side. Voice not yet rehearsed. When he passed, he paused, looked at me, but said nothing. I stepped forward. Not to apologize. Not yet. Just to say something. Anything. But before I could, he spoke. I understand why you did it. No accusation, no wound in his voice. Just truth. But don't mistake my silence for weakness. It's just the space where I decide if I will stay close to what disrespects me. And then he bowed slightly. Not to me, to himself, and walked away. I stood there longer than I should have. Not because I was stunned, but because for the first time, I didn't know how to reclaim a man who didn't leave broken, but whole. Chapter 5. I had power. I had beauty. I had control. But suddenly, I wanted something I'd never wanted before. To be enough without needing to prove it, I didn't call for him again. Not because I gave up, but because, for the first time, I didn't want him to come for the wrong reasons. I sat alone. No guards. No perfume. No planned lighting. Just me. A reflection. A silence I didn't know could ache. I replayed every tactic I'd used. The glances, the gifts, the threat, the coldness. All of it designed to provoke a reaction. And he gave me none. But he gave me something else. Something I didn't know I was missing until it wasn't offered on my terms. Integrity without negotiation. The Stoics teach, do not try to hold what does not stay freely, and never stay where your soul must shrink to feel safe. And maybe that's what he was doing all along. Not resisting me, just refusing to shrink. That night I said no to 3 proposals. 2 military, 1 marriage. I ignored a letter from an ally who offered territory in exchange for my name beside his, and for the first time it wasn't because I was bored. It was because I was tired. Tired of winning by manipulation and ending up alone with admiration but no intimacy. I didn't want to conquer another man. I wanted to understand the one who walked away because he wouldn't be bought. And I knew, if I wanted to find him again, couldn't summon him. I'd have to go to him, without armor, without script, just me. Chapter 6. I didn't ask him to come back. I went to him, not to win, but to listen. And for once I spoke without strategy. I found him where I first saw him, by the quiet path behind the southern wall. No audience, no ceremony, just him, reading. Always. Reading. He didn't startle when I approached, didn't stand, didn't shift. He just looked up and waited. Not to see what I wanted, but to witness who I had decided to be in that moment. I stood there too long. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because for the first time, I wanted my words to mean exactly what they said. No more, no less. So I sat. Not opposite, not beside. Just close enough for silence to feel shared. The Stoics speak of humility, not as lowering yourself, but as the willingness to see clearly without decoration. And that's what I tried to do. Finally, I spoke. You make me uncomfortable. He didn't smile. Didn't look smug. Just listened. Not because you're cruel. Not because you push me away. But because you don't move when I press. You don't bend when I insist. And you don't react when I strike. He said nothing, and I kept going. I don't know how to be near a man like that. Like you. A man who doesn't want to be needed, but also doesn't walk away when he's not wanted. Then I looked at him fully. No veil, no performance. And said, I don't know how to do this. but I want to learn. If you're still here. He watched me, and then he nodded. Not in triumph, not in approval, just in acknowledgement. As if to say, now we begin. Not where I gave in, but where you let go. Chapter 7. I thought I was inviting him into my world, but he was inviting me into his. Slowly, firmly, without losing himself, he looked at me not like someone who'd won, but like someone who had nothing to prove. And finally, he spoke. Longer than usual. Still soft, still clear. You're not the first person who's tried to move me. I blinked. But you're the first who stayed when I didn't. He stood up, not to leave, but to meet me at eye level. You want to learn? Then listen to this first. His voice didn't rise, but it didn't hesitate either. I won't belong to you. Not to your need to be desired. Not to your need to be obeyed. Not even to your love. That word, love, hung there. Heavy, unrushed. Because if I give you all of me, just to keep you, then what you'll have's another version of the men you already conquered, and I won't live as someone else's reflection. The Stoics say, to be whole you must live by principle, even when affection asks you to bend. And he was whole. Not hardened, not cold, just centered. I didn't speak, because this time, it wasn't my turn to name the rules. He continued. You want to walk beside me? Walk. But I won't chase. I won't react. And I won't shrink just to fit inside your idea of closeness. Then he stepped back. Not away. Just enough to show, this is where I end. And if you want to come closer, it has to be because you respect that I have edges. I nodded. Not in agreement, but in realization. Because maybe for the first time, I wasn't in love with him. I was in awe of the fact that he still loved himself while standing in front of me. Chapter 8. I didn't own him. I didn't lead him. But somehow, sitting beside him felt like more than I'd ever had. We sat by the lake that evening. No thrones, no guards, no power dynamic to perform. Just stone under our feet, and silence between. That didn't feel like tension. It felt like trust. He didn't ask me to talk. He didn't ask for anything. And for someone like me, used to being the flame, the center, the one who makes people orbit, this stillness was unsettling. Then calming, then needed. The Stoics say, you don't need to lead what walks beside you willingly. And for the first time I believed that. I watched his hands. Not rough, not soft, steady. He traced the edge of a stone, not to distract himself, but as if to say, I'm here, not rushing, not drifting, just here. I breathed out. Not dramatically, not deliberately, just naturally. Like my lungs had finally been given permission to exist without posture. What are you thinking? I asked. He looked up, not startled. That this is enough. I nodded. Didn't say, me too. Didn't say anything. But in that moment I realized he wasn't trying to make me feel loved. He was showing me what it felt like to not need to be needed, and I didn't feel less. I felt free. Chapter 9. We walked in together, not as equals, not as proof, just as ourselves, and that confused everyone. They expected me to arrive alone. That's how I'd always come. Power enters best without shadows, they say. But this time I didn't. Walk ahead. He didn't walk behind. We moved side by side, like two people who had nothing to prove, and nothing to hide. I didn't hold his hand. That would have been a statement. He didn't hold mine. That would have been performance. We just walked, with no choreography. No whispers exchanged, but the room felt it. Eyes tracked, us like a current. Some with curiosity, some with quiet contempt. They saw my posture, and wondered if I was softening. They saw his stillness, and couldn't decide if it was arrogance or something far more threatening. Unbothered certainty. The Stoics say, be indifferent, not because you lack care, but because you refuse to be moved by what is hollow. And he was unmoved by a room full of people who measured worth by applause and position. I caught a whisper. Why him? Another. She could have had anyone. But what they didn't know was that I'd had anyone, and it left me with everything but myself. This man beside me didn't add to my image. He returned me to my own center. He didn't blink at the attention. Didn't smile for validation. Didn't flinch when no one acknowledged him. He simply remained, and so did I. And for once, I didn't feel like a queen walking into a room. I felt like a woman finally walking beside someone who wouldn't lose himself, just to be seen with me. Chapter 10. He was insulted. Calmly. Publicly. And he let it pass like wind. But I, for the first time, felt the fire. He refused to feed. We were leaving. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just done. That's when he approached. The one from years ago. One who once held my name like a weapon, and whispered forever, with eyes full of ambition. He didn't greet me. He greeted the man beside me. She's always had a taste for contrast, he said, with a smile that didn't reach his tone. It won't last, of course, but I admire your courage. Then he raised his glass to me. Mocking, polished, cruel, in that charming way only men like him master. I waited. Waited for the shift, the tension, the flicker in my Stoic's eye. But nothing. He simply looked at him, briefly. No frown, no pause. Then, turned to me and said, "Shall we?" and walked on. The Stoics say, the insult belongs to the one who offers it. You're not obligated to carry it further. He didn't carry it. But I did. Not the insult, the heat, the defense, the weight of being next to a man who refused to fight back, even when I wanted him to. I caught up beside him, tried to mask it, but he noticed. "You're angry," he said. I didn't answer. He smiled, just slightly. Not to calm me, but to acknowledge it. "You don't have to protect me," he said. "I'm not here to be proven worthy. I'm here to walk with you. Not through noise, but through clarity." And that, somehow, broke something in me. Not out of weakness, but out of realization. He wasn't avoiding the world's battles. He had already won the one inside himself, and I, for all my command, was still learning how not to swing at every shadow. Chapter 11. I asked if he feared me, and he said no. But what he feared was something I never expected. We were walking again. Nowhere important. No one watching. For once, the air between us was not made of power. It was made of uncertainty. Mine, not his. I had never feared losing a man. But with him I feared not knowing how long I could keep something I didn't control. So I asked, quietly, honestly, "Have you ever feared me?" He didn't stop, didn't look surprised. He just said, "No." Then after a pause, he added, "I've only feared one thing." I looked up. "What?" He turned to me steady. "That one day, you'd shrink yourself just to be kept and call that love. The Stoics say, the greatest betrayal is not to another, but to your own clarity." His words weren't a warning. They were a hope. A mirror. A quiet reminder that he never asked me to be less. I just didn't yet believe I could be fully myself, and still be safe. I stopped walking. He did too. And I whispered, "I don't want to shrink." He nodded. "Then don't, not even for me." Chapter 12. We sat together. Not as lovers. Not as queen and subject. Just two people who finally understood that freedom is the foundation of real intimacy. We found a bench beneath the fig trees. No one else. No schedules. No noise. He didn't offer his hand. I didn't ask for closeness. We just sat. Minutes passed, not in silence, but in ease. Then he said, "You know, people think love is about giving everything away." I raised an eyebrow. He looked forward, continued. "But I think the most honest kind of love is when two people stay entirely themselves, and still stay. The Stoics would call this autarkia, inner sufficiency. The kind that doesn't disappear when met with closeness." Thought about that. All the men who had wanted me to bend. All the times I thought I had to fold myself into something more likable, softer, less sharp. And now here I was, still me, still whole, still here, and beside me, someone who never asked for a smaller version. "And if I become more?" I asked. He turned to me. "I steady. Then I'll stay steady. Not to hold you down, but to make sure you don't forget you were already enough before you were ever loved." I looked away, not to hide, just to let the tears settle back into quiet. Strength. Because for the first time I wasn't trying to be adored. I was simply being, and still chosen. Some stories don't end in vows, or battles, or victory. Some stories end with two people finally no longer trying to change each other. She didn't win him. He didn't resist her. They just stopped needing to be anything other than real. And in that quiet, something stronger than conquest was born. Presence. Without pressure. Closeness. Without collapse. If you've ever tried to own love, shape it, control it, demand it, and still felt alone, maybe what you needed was someone who wouldn't run, but also wouldn't fold. You're listening to Stoic Spyder, where love doesn't mean possession, and power doesn't need to be proven. We tell stories that don't demand attention, only recognition. When you're ready to stop chasing and start sitting still, we'll still be here. Quiet, unmoved, and real.